announcements quickly. Here we go. Like I said, we are recording today, and we are so glad that you can be with us today. This is our December caregiver training, and I can't believe that we are already at December. That's just crazy to me. And the topic that we wanted to talk about this month is caregiver guilt. And I think that is something that we can all relate to, something that we probably all deal with, ourselves on a pretty frequent basis, if not daily, in little ways and sometimes in larger ways. So we really wanted to address this. We know that this is a topic that is on a lot of people's hearts and minds, especially around the holiday season. So we felt that this was a really prudent time to have this conversation and to share some ways to identify caregiver guilt and then help combat that guilt that you may be feeling. So we're really glad to have you here with us today while we talk about this. We are going to go ahead and move forward. First, we're going to just talk a little bit about who we are, just in case you're not familiar. I know Marisol and Sue, you are, but for anyone that's joining us on the recording that may not be familiar, just a brief little introduction. We are the Philadelphia Family Supports Programs, and we are programs of Vision for Equality. And this is a two-part program. So our first program is the Systems Navigation Program. And really the focus of that program is matching families up with a peer mentor. And our peer mentors are people who, have gone through this, have dealt with the systems, have loved ones that are involved in, physical health, behavioral health, education, all the different systems that families may need assistance with. And they can get help peer-to-peer navigating these different systems of care. And it will really help the families figure out how to better navigate these systems, really give them the tools, allow them to empower themselves to be able to utilize these resources in a way that best helps their family. We've had so much success with this program, and we are very proud of, what we've been able to do to help families. And, our families have been reporting, they feel less isolated, more connected, more supported, and they're able to learn about the systems in a way that really makes sense. Being able to learn from someone who is, who has been part of the system and knows their way around it. And then our other program, which is the program running this training today, is our Trauma-Informed Care program. And what we really focus on are the caregivers and assisting caregivers in finding resources to help them with things like training and counseling. We also offer peer-to-peer mentoring as well for our families in the Trauma-Informed Care program, just to help them manage stress and anxiety and day-to-day situations that crop up, so that they have a safe place to really process their emotions, and really recognize that the trauma that they're dealing with daily is in fact trauma, and it is okay to identify it that way and to seek the resources to be able to help themselves. So we're really proud of this program as well and excited that you can be here with us today. Just a little bit about who we are. Like I said, unfortunately, Shu couldn't be with us today, but she is our program manager for both programs. And Shu has a wealth of experience and knowledge, both professionally and personally. As a mom of 3 children herself, she has dealt with the systems for many, many years. And like I said, professionally worked in many areas with vision and outside of vision. And she's also a certified trauma professional and certified in clinical anxiety treatment. And Shu has brought such a wealth of information to the families that we're helping, and we're so glad to have her as our program manager. A little bit about myself. I'm Victoria Schiano. I work for the Trauma-Informed Care program with Vision for Equality as a family support specialist. I also work with a couple other programs. You may know me either from PA Families Need Nurses Now or the PA Family Network. I do a little bit of everything with Vision, which I'm really grateful for and enjoy. joy. My most important job is that I'm a mom to my 6.5-year-old son. He actually made me change this morning to 6.5. That was very important to him. Year old son. He is a huge outdoors fan, and we're constantly on the go with him. But Cole has a diagnosis of mitochondrial disease. With that comes 32 specialists and 4 therapists between both children's hospital, well, 2 of the children's hospitals in the area. He's also on the spectrum. So I've had a lot of experience in the last 6.5 years with both the medical, physical health side of things, and also the behavioral and mental health side. And I've been doing advocacy work now since he was born in 2016 with various organizations, but I am so proud to be with Vision for Equality and to be able to take our story and our experiences and be able to help other families not feel alone and realize that, you know, they can empower themselves and work through these situations. And it's really an honor and a joy to be part of these programs with Vision. So a little bit about today, just real quick. We're going to cover a couple different topics today related to caregiver guilt. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what caregiver guilt is. And then we're going to talk about how it impacts us. And then finally, what we can do about it. And as always, I'm going to have a lot of resources for you throughout and then at the end. And as always, we will be sending you a copy of this PowerPoint since you registered. So you will get a copy of this recording and also the PowerPoint. So don't worry about, you know, trying to write links and stuff down. You will get this, which will be clickable to be able to utilize the resources within the PowerPoint presentation. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what caregiver guilt is. And it's, you know, something that is so common, but I think a lot of times in our daily lives as caregivers, we kind of brush it off as something else. A lot of times our guilt can stem from anger or resentment or sadness or fear, as this says, overwhelm or exhaustion. And those are kind of the underlying emotions beneath guilt. And as caregivers, you know, we are putting so much of ourselves into someone else as well and trying to give them the life that they deserve, right? And, you know, when things aren't going the way that we want them to, or, you know, there are extenuating circumstances in our lives that are preventing us from being able to do the things we want to do, or maybe they're just not working, you know, or we don't have the supports that we need, all of those things weigh heavily on us and can make us feel really guilty, along with all of these other emotions. And that is really, really normal. And a lot of times, you know, we don't show ourselves the grace that we should going through this process of caregiving. All of these things are normal. And like I said, we're going to be talking more about that as we go along. But I really want to emphasize that none of these things are abnormal, and none of these things are things that, you know, you should feel like you have to hide. They're all normal parts of the process of being a caregiver. And they're really, we kind of break guilt up into, you know, 5 different areas. So, you know, oftentimes we can feel guilty about doing wrong by the care recipient, or maybe the person that we're caring for isn't getting better and we're questioning ourselves, you know, what could I have done differently? What else do I need to do? Who else do I need to involve? All of those questions that, you know, at least for me, really circle in my mind at night as I'm trying to sleep when I'm, you know, able to do so. Those are the things that kind of keep me up at night. And I feel guilty about, you know, maybe I should have gotten someone else involved. Maybe, you know, we should have seen a different doctor. Maybe I should have pushed harder with his IEP. These are all things, you know, that really can weigh heavy on us. We can also feel guilty when we feel like we're falling short as a caregiver. I know personally, this is something I laugh. It's not funny, but it's just one of those things, like I feel like it's a daily thing for me where I feel like, I didn't spend enough time with him today, or I didn't make today interesting enough. He spent more time on his tablet than he probably should have. I didn't get to all the schoolwork that we should have done today, things like that. And when you feel like you've fallen short, it's really hard, to not put that on yourself when you're looking around and comparing yourself. We also have guilt around self-care if and when we do take that 5 minutes for ourselves to really, relax and, maybe give ourselves some attention or a break. Uh, we feel guilty. I know that's something that I have dealt with a lot over the years. It took me a very long time to be able to leave my son for any amount of time. We actually, he is home care nursing, and I'll never forget, he was probably about 8 months old. And his home care nurse walked in the door that day and she said, "Victoria, here are your keys. You are leaving this house for 3 hours, and I don't want to see you out front. I don't want to see you out back. I don't want to see you in the neighborhood. You are leaving for 3 hours, and I don't care what you do. You're just leaving," because I was involved with everything, even though we did have a nurse there for some of the hours of the day. I just couldn't let go and give myself any kind of time or attention. And that first time that I ever left him, all I did was go get some food from Wawa, and I sat in a park near our house. And I cried, but then I sat there, and that silence and just realizing like I could breathe was such a relief. But then I also felt really guilty about feeling relieved for leaving. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes with self-care. We can feel really guilty about that. We also have guilt about neglecting other family or friends or relationships. For me, that's something that, I deal with often. I feel guilty that I'm not able to be there for my parents the way that I would like to be. They're aging, and there's so many things that I would like to be able to help with and do, but they're 4 hours away, and trying to negotiate all of that with my son's care is really impossible sometimes, and I feel badly about that. My brother lives in Florida, and I have a niece who's going to be one next week, and I've only seen her twice, and that weighs heavily on my mind. I would love to be more involved in their lives, but it's really hard, again, with Cole's care and what's safe for him, and being able to get all the way to Florida. Of course, finances too. When is that not a thing that we think about, right? But also my own relationship with my husband. I feel guilty, I'm not able to keep up with things the way I want to, spend the time with him that I want to spend with him. And all of these things just stack up. And again, these are also the things, I don't know about you, but that weigh on me at night when I'm trying to sleep. Where did I fall short? And then, of course, we can also feel guilty about having negative feelings towards the people that we're caring for. And this does happen. Being completely honest, I've had days where it's like, oh my goodness, if I have to hear mom one more time. And the other part of me knows that sounds crazy because I have waited my whole life for that. And I love being his mom. But there are just some days it's just, I need 5 minutes. I need someone not to need me for 5 minutes, right? And but then I feel guilty about that. I feel awful for feeling that way. And, these are the kinds of guilt that can really stack up. And while they feel like little things in the moment, over time, that can really cause a lot of added stress and anxiety and trauma to us as the caregivers. So it's really important to be able to recognize when these things are happening, and how to handle it. Sorry, that jumped ahead on us a little bit there. So, just some things to think about with caregiver guilt. These are just some statistics, which you can definitely take a look at. But, I think the reality in these statistics is that as caregivers, we put so much of our heart and soul into what we do. And we all have that in common, that we have a really hard time saying no. And because of that, all of these things can add up to not just, mental health problems like anxiety and depression, but also physical health problems, because we're spending so many hours on top of maybe working another job, taking care of our homes, other obligations in our community, other loved ones in our lives, whether it be children or spouses or family members or friends. We have a lot going on as well in our lives besides just being a caregiver, and all of this can take a toll. So this talks a little bit about some causes of caregiver grief, just some other things that might crop up as well, like unresolved conflicts, like we talked about your loved one not improving, but I think mostly the belief that we're falling short, and that everything around us feels like it's suffering. That can be so overwhelming. And like this said, 54% of us feel guilty about even taking a break from our duties. You need a break even when, if you're working a 9 to 5, you get breaks because it's important to just de-stress, and you get to go home at the end of a 9 to 5. But when you're caregiving, we have a really hard time walking away from that even for short periods of time. Our sleep is impacted. We don't feel like there's anyone else who can do the job that we're doing. And it is hard to find that staffing as well, of course. So how does all of this add up into how it impacts us? So, there are a lot of things that can happen emotionally. This slide really covers a lot of the different emotional aspects, feeling ambivalent. I know that this is something that I deal with. There's so many things that I want to do, but at the same time, I don't want to do them. That sounds great in my head. And in theory, I would love to go out and to be doing all of these holiday activities and, really being a Pinterest mom, as they say. But also then, after I've daydreamed about it, I just having the actual energy and time to do it, like it's not there. We can feel resentment, feeling maybe we feel unappreciated, or we feel like we need and want more help, but maybe we're not getting it, or we don't know how to ask for it, or there just aren't people to ask. And that is so hard to deal with. And of course, it can make us feel irritable, um, which makes everything harder. I know for me that there are days when, I'm trying to, right now, I don't have any night nursing, which is incredibly difficult. It's exhausting. When I don't have a night nurse for my son, I have to be up all night long because of his medical issues, seizures, etc. So it's really hard, between my husband and I splitting time. It's just so exhausting. So even the little things that would normally not be, frustrating at all turn into moments where it's just so exhausting. And I get cranky about the silliest things sometimes. But that adds into then feeling guilty. I just like, oh my goodness, why did I just get upset about that piece of bread falling on the floor? Like, it's not that big of a deal, right? But because of everything else that we're dealing with, that really adds up. We can all have a lot of anxiety too, worrying, are we making the right choices? I don't know about you, but like I said before, this is something that I deal with at night, especially when nothing else is going on. I'm constantly playing back in my head what happened that day. Did I do the right thing? Are we on the right path? And this guilt builds up over time, and the anxiety can just increase for us, as that builds up. We can feel really helpless. It just sometimes it never feels like it's right or enough. And maybe that's because you don't have a diagnosis, or even if you do, you're not getting anywhere with it, or you're just not getting enough help and making the progress that you want to make. And all of these things combined over time can result in depression. Caregivers are at high risk for depression, even more than, the average population, because we're constantly experiencing these feelings of loss and grief. things with our loved ones change over time, and even our own lives, just the regular day-to-day things that we deal with, all of that adds up over time and puts us at high risk for sadness or depression. So it's really, really important for us to be able to identify these emotions, to talk about how we're feeling, to be able to put it down and have a plan, and not feel like there's something wrong with vocalizing this guilt that we're feeling or these other emotions. It's really, really important that we're able to talk to someone about this. Um, a big thing, caregivers a lot of times fall into this where they feel like, I shouldn't feel guilty and I shouldn't feel resentment, and I should be happy that my loved one at least is home and that I can take care of them, and that I'm doing the best that I can. And, you know, that is just not true. It is okay. We are human. Everything doesn't go to plan always, and it is okay to fall short. A lot of times, and I know I'm talking to myself here too, taking on unrealistic responsibilities. I don't know why this year I thought it would be a great idea to volunteer for basically every committee at my son's school as well, on top of everything else, being the kindergarten treasurer, doing the yearbook, helping with all these other festivals and parties and everything, being a homeroom parent. I don't know why I thought that was a great idea, but I thought I was doing it, for my son to make it better for him. But ultimately, all that did was tack on way too much extra stress for me, which just was a snowball effect in so many other areas. And then I just feel awful for, taking on all that responsibility and not being able to live up to what I was trying to do. And again, all of these things can cause worsening health, and lead to poor lifestyle choices, as well. I know for me, I'm an emotional eater, so that is something that I fall back on, when I'm sad and stressed and worrying. This has some health statistics that I think are really important to think about. Less than half of caregivers think that their health is excellent or even very good. And this was done a couple years ago, so I'd be interested to see an updated statistic. And even that was a huge drop 2 years ago. From the previous survey that had been done. So, it's just showing that it's getting harder and, more difficult for caregivers as time goes on. And more than half of caregivers have been diagnosed with at least two chronic health conditions. They list heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes. And really, like I mentioned before, with caregivers being at higher risk for depression, we're at higher risk for health issues as well compared to the general population, which is why it's important that we prioritize ourselves as well and our own health, and well-being. So what can we do about all of this? I think, it's really easy to, talk about it, but putting it into practice and, changing that is something that, we all need to work on. So the first step is really acknowledging, like I said, that you feel guilty. Um, and to be able to say this is happening, and to not allow yourself to feel like you have to be silent about it. Then you want to check your expectations against reality. Are you setting up realistic goals for yourself and your loved one? Are you, like in my example, taking on all of these committees and things at school? Is that really something that in reality I can handle? No. I set myself up, to be in a bad spot, unfortunately. And I think this next one is super important. It says, don't compare your worst moments against someone's highlight reel. And that is so true. This day and age, especially with social media, I think we're so prone to, and it's so available to be able to see other people's lives and what they're doing. And it's so easy to compare. And, you have to remember what's on social media, what other people are talking about. Nobody's talking about what's difficult at home. No one's posting, their messy living room floor. They're posting their remodel that was just done and how perfect everything looks. And you have to remember that that's not really what's going on behind closed doors in everybody's home. So don't try to compare what you're doing to what anybody else is doing. You're unique, your loved one is unique, and your life is unique. So it is okay for the way that you're doing things to look different from someone else. And it's super important to use positive coping strategies, when you're feeling guilty. And we're going to talk about some of those here as we go. And another one that they mention is reframing guilt as regret. To look at it and say, well, I wish this could have happened. However, this is what actually happened. And now we're moving forward. So it's really important and helpful to be able to look at it that way instead of just saying, I failed or I didn't. You don't want to look at, yourself internally in that way. And then, of course, getting support and connecting with others is so important. And I love this little graphic here. It talks about self-care, different things that self-care can be. A lot of times people just think about, like a spa day or whatever, but it's not that. Sometimes self-care is really forgiving yourself, or setting boundaries, saying no, staying home, asking for help. All of these things can be self-care, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about that. There's so many things that we can do as self-care, and as ways to really give ourselves some time to breathe and focus. This talks about being confident in your decisions. It's really important once you make that plan, try not to second guess where you're going. You are doing the best that you can for your loved one. But I think the most important thing on here is knowing when to seek out professional help. Allowing yourself that grace and that openness and vulnerability to say, it's time to talk to someone else. It's time to get a professional involved who can assist. I know for me personally, that happened pretty early on in my journey with my son. I realized he was about 6 months old, and I realized that I was in a really dangerous place mentally. I was not okay. I was not coping well. And it was to a point that I really needed a professional involved. And of course, I felt guilty about that at first, but once I started talking to a therapist, and getting treatment, I realized that I wasn't alone and that it was okay to be vulnerable. And that's when things really started to change for me. So it is okay to give yourself that grace and that permission to seek additional help. Now, these next few slides have a whole lot of information about things that we can do, as well as clickable resources. I am not going to read this to you, of course. I just want to highlight a few things I think are really important on each slide. I mentioned forgiving yourself. And I think that's so hard as a caregiver, right? I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I know that a lot of families that I've talked to, you know, oftentimes it's easier for us to forgive someone else than it is to forgive ourselves for things that happen. And even as I'm having conversations with my husband or my family, and I say, oh, I did this, I could have done better. I could have, been a better parent today. And, it's so important to sometimes take that step back and say, you know what? There were extenuating circumstances today. Maybe he spent more time in front of the tablet than I would have liked, but you know what? He's safe, he's healthy, he was fed, we made it through the day. And it's okay. You did the best you could today, and everybody's okay. And it's okay that you didn't do all the things on that checklist. The most important, everybody being safe and healthy, was completed. And that's ultimately an okay way to get through the day sometimes. And just to forgive yourself, to be able to move on. Because if you can't forgive yourself, you're never going to be able to move forward and to really process that guilt that you may be feeling. I also think, it mentions on here, respite can help. Getting a break from caregiving. And I know from personal experience how hard that can be. And it doesn't have to be anything like, a vacation away. You don't even really have to go that far. Sometimes just being able to take a walk, get out in the fresh air yourself, go grab a drink like I did that day at the local gas station at Wawa, and then just head down to the park just to give yourself a little bit of time to breathe and get out of the situation. Sometimes that's also really good for, just being able to reflect and refresh to be able to make the decisions and come back in ready to go when you get back. I also think on here it's important to talk about, depression. Like I mentioned before, I can't emphasize this enough. Professional help is available. We are able to help at the trauma program as well, get you connected with resources if that's something that you're interested in, counseling for any reason. We can help you work either with your insurance, or we also have a program to be able to get you connected with Sultane in the meantime, while we're trying to work with you to be able to help set up that resource. So please know that we are here to be able to do that as well. But also just sometimes moving, like I said, getting outside, even doing things in the house. My son and I had a dance party the other day, and it was so silly and ridiculous to he's obsessed with these Disney movies called Zombies, and he loves the songs and he listens to them about 300 times a day on repeat. But just dancing with him to those songs, I was having such a rough day and I was so stressed out about the nursing situation. But by the end, I found myself just laughing and feeling so much better. So just moving can really change your outlook on the day. But whatever that looks like for you, maybe it looks like journaling, maybe it looks like, sitting with a coffee and just relaxing a little bit. Maybe it looks like playing a family game together, whatever that means for you to really just get yourself out of that situation and be able to regroup and process and just take a break from what's going on. That's really, really important. It's also, important to have a contingency plan. We've talked about this in some of our previous trainings. For example, talking about hospitalizations and being able to plan ahead for those. It's important to have plans together so that you're not worrying about who you're going to call if something happens, or knowing how to handle certain situations, planning out, what you would do in emergency situations. Also support groups, which we do one of those as well. Our next one is actually tomorrow. So hopefully you'll be able to join that with us as well, but doesn't even have to be that. There are so many support groups. We have tons of resources for that, but just having the opportunity to connect with other caregivers and families who are going through the same things that you may be going through, and knowing you're not alone. Sometimes that alone can be enough to really just change your outlook. Um, Creating a ritual. I know one of my friends, she is also the mom of a medically complex kiddo, and she has a ritual every morning. She's up half an hour before everybody else. She has her little coffee station. She makes herself a coffee, and she sits and in the living room in quiet and just enjoys that time for herself. And she does it every day without fail. And just having that is a way of letting go and getting started for the day is so helpful for her to be able to start on a refreshed outlook on the day. But it, of course, it can be whatever that looks like for you. Some people do lots of different things like journaling, calling a friend, like I said, again, just, saying every day we're going for a walk, anything like that can become a ritual, which can give you something to look forward to, and just give you that continuity that you can count on. And the big one that I want to highlight in here is it's okay to admit being jealous. And I know for myself, for families that I've worked with, friends that I have, it's really hard to look at other families, families who may not have the same experience as we do, and see all the things that they're doing and able to do, they're able to go to the grocery store, or, they're able to go out to dinner, or, they're able to go on this vacation. And it's okay to be jealous and to even feel resentment in the moment. These things are normal and they're healthy as long as we're not allowing ourselves to stay in that. We can look at the things then that we do have, because there's always good in our lives, and there's always a silver lining in anything if you look hard enough. So, it's okay, acknowledge that feeling, but then find the joy in something small. It can be as simple as, maybe the sun shining today. For me, sometimes that's enough to get by, but whatever that looks like for you, it's okay to acknowledge that. And then here are some resources that will be clickable for you. And so again, like I said, I don't want to read these to you, but there are some really great fact sheets on caregiving and ambiguous loss. Also taking care of yourself and caregiver health. Those are some more fact sheets. And then we have some on caregiving with siblings specifically. I know we've had some siblings as part of our groups recently. And then one that I particularly liked that I think so important, because a lot of times tension can develop in families when maybe you feel like you're the primary caregiver and there are other people who could be contributing, and they're not. There's a great fact sheet here on ways to hold a family meeting to discuss caregiving, and other family members taking on roles to assist, and ways to do that in healthy and productive ways. So I think that's really important, which is why I included that one. So these will be, I think, helpful resources for you. But the one on this sheet as well that I wanted to highlight is sleep. It has to be on the priority list. And again, personally speaking, I know how hard that is. Like I said, without nursing, night nursing myself right now, I know it has impacted my health over the years. But I have had to come to a place where, I say, if there's an hour, the laundry can wait. I need to lay down and take a nap right now, because I have to take care of myself, or I'm no good to anyone else. And my health is impacted to a point. I'm no good for myself. I'm no good for anyone else. And then, I have long-term health issues from it. So, making sure that you say yes to yourself and the things that you need as well, which definitely needs to include sleep. So as always, we have some resources for you as well. So the first one is a tip sheet on dealing with caregiver guilt in ways that will improve health. I think that this one is really fantastic. It has some great resources. Where did it jump to my page? I apologize. I don't know, this slide must be hidden. I will unhide the other slide. I apologize, but there are other resources as well. Of course, I have us on here as well, because we are always here for families to help in any way we can. Whether it's our navigation program or our trauma program. And then of course, the PA Family Network is also another great resource for support groups or navigating any kind of family issue as well. And like I said, I will make sure that other sheet is not hidden. I'm not sure where that went. I apologize. So I want to take this time. I know that we're running a little bit ahead, but I, want to open it up if anybody wants to share, if they have questions or comments. Like I said, everybody's experiences are so different, and I am more than happy to. And I would love to hear from someone else as well. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to pop it in the chat or unmute. There we go.
Yeah, I love really the presentation, because really, like a parent, it's true. For more, you don't want. At one point, you feel guilt because you want to do a lot of stuff for your loved one, and sometimes you cannot do it. Especially if you have two children with disabilities, you have to give in time to each one, and sometimes you have to give in more time to one to the other. So that is a position sometimes like for a parent is really difficult because sometimes, like in my case, I feel like giving more time to my daughter than my son, and both need a lot of help. So this all this information got to be really beneficial for me, and I got to pass to my families too, because it's a topic like nobody want to talk. Sometimes when you're a parent, don't want to talk about that because it's not good to say, I feel guilty. But it's important to open and talk, because that is what ought to help us. Like you say, sometimes our health get bad because we don't taking care of ourselves. Like in my case, I get really a lot of medical conditions. And now I realize, like, if you don't taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your loved one. So thank you for this presentation because it's really helpful.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you found this helpful, Marisol, and I hope that, these resources can be helpful, not like you said, not just for you, but also for your family. And, you made a really good point about also, when you have multiple children, splitting your time and feeling, pulled in multiple directions, and like you're not able to give, another one the attention that they deserve as well. And that's such a, a weight on your heart as a parent. And it's like you said, it's important to talk about that. And I really thank you for sharing. I really appreciate hearing.
Victoria, I would like to say thank you very much for this awesome presentation, very informative, and it hit home so much. Like even when you said how you can't sleep when you go lay down at night, you just can't set your brain off. So what I do, I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. I just wake up. I'm like, okay, I can't go back to sleep. Sometimes I'll doze off for a minute, but we can't shut our brains off. And I tell people quite often, I say, well, I'm going to take my senior nap. I'm going to shut it down. This is like 2, 3 o'clock in the middle of the day. They say, you're taking a senior nap? I say, yes, I take my senior nap because I can't sleep at night. So whenever I can sleep, I sleep.
Yes.
You're exhausted throughout the day. And I feel guilty quite often because I feel like I haven't been there for my son, or I haven't done everything. Like you were saying, you feel like you didn't do everything you could have done, or you feel like just things are missing, something's missing. So it's just, thank you for the information. It's just our moment when you get someone, well, a group of people that can relate to what you're feeling or what you're going through. And it's like grieving. It's just like that grief, it just consumes you sometimes. And you have to remember just to stop and start over, reset yourself, recenter yourself. So thank you very much for that information. And as Marisol said, I'll share with my community also.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Joan. And, I resonate so much. What you're saying resonates with me, about just, during the day, you just feel like it's not enough, but like you said, the taking a senior nap, I love that. That is a description. But that little bit of time for yourself and that little bit of reset allows you to be able to do more for your loved one. So it's beneficial for everyone, and it's important to do those things for yourself. So I'm glad that you're doing that. That's a wonderful thing, and that's really healthy to say I need this, and I'm doing it. Good for you that you're doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yes, Sue said she highly recommends power naps. Agreed. Yes, they are so important. That's happened a lot recently. It's like I have 20 minutes, we're laying down, I don't care.
Yeah, as long as everybody's safe.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, because my guys don't sleep, so I rarely ever, I don't, I'm with you with no sleep, we get 2 hours straight of sleep a night.
Yeah.
We get sleep, intermittent sleep, but we rarely ever get more than 2 hours at a time. So a power nap is a pretty big deal. And it just makes you feel so much better. Like once you wake up from it, it's hard to get up from a power nap, but once you wake up from it, you do feel so much better.
Yeah. It just can clear, not just, not just for your body, but just clears your mind and can just be that reset point that you need in the day. So yeah, that's super important. And whatever that looks like.
And sometimes when you don't sleep, like I think in this boat, everybody don't sleep. Sometimes when you don't sleep and when you finally get some sleep, you have to wake up because it's time to wake up and start the day. It is really sometimes really difficult. Having two kids with disabilities and sometimes my daughter don't sleep or my son beside don't sleep. So it's important also to ask for help. Like before I do it only myself, but now my husband and I take turns because I realize we need to sleep, because then you cannot function. Sometimes people don't understand, they put the light in risk because you have to drive. Sometimes you are, really sleepy. So it's important, like, to try to, like you said, take a nap or something because your body at one moment shut down. So it's important to rest.
Absolutely. And even if maybe you can't close your eyes, just being able to sit down somewhere quiet and be able to rest your mind, that sometimes can, even 10 minutes can just really help in those situations as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Marisol. Just, good for you for being able to identify that you needed that help and asking for it. I know that's hard as a caregiver. I have a really hard time. It drives my husband nuts. I have a hard time asking for help, but I'm trying. It's something that we all need to do, is ask for that help.
And forgiveness is another big thing, trying to forgive yourself for everything, from you feeling like you fell short or you didn't have enough time or you didn't do something or you could have done something different. That's difficult because you're always beating up on yourself and applauding everyone else, but we have to take time for ourselves, because that actually builds stress. That's one of the number one builders of stress, not being able to forgive yourself and carrying all those weights on your shoulders. So I try to take some of those weights off. Even though I don't have a team to help me, it's good to come and sit and talk on groups like this, because you guys can relate to what I'm going through. A lot of people can't. Our family members can't. They don't understand it. They don't get it. Families break up. I've seen so many divorces and separations because of children that have a disability or different ability. It's just to come to these support groups, they're so needed. They are very much needed, and it's very great. Thank you for having them and sharing the information.
Oh, of course. And, like I said, we do have that support group tomorrow. So hopefully you'll be able to join us as well for that. But let's see, that'll be the second one this month. I can't believe we're almost to Christmas. I don't even know. It feels like everything's flying. This is crazy to me. But yeah, we're almost there. But yeah, we have 2 more support groups to go this month. But we are looking into, hopefully being able to expand that to more frequently, because like you said, it's so valuable to be able to sit down with other people who just get it. You don't have to explain yourself. We all understand, and that alone is so beneficial, to know you're amongst people who just get it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been so great talking with all of you, and I really appreciate your, being willing to be vulnerable and share with us. It's so valuable for the conversation. But if no one else has any questions or anything, I can let you go, give you a few minutes back for the day. But like I said, I hope you'll be able to join us tomorrow for the support group. But thank you again for taking the time and being here today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great day.
Bye.
You also. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye, Marisol. Take care. Be safe.